The story begins with a man named Lenny, who is driving his pickup truck through the desert when he pulls over to take a break. As he steps out, he notices his truck's headlights suddenly flickering on and off. At the same time, a strange buzzing noise starts coming from the radio. Moments later, a glowing object streaks across the sky at incredible speed before crashing into the ground nearby. Curious, Lenny walks over to investigate. He finds a round object with part of its surface transparent. As he gets closer to take a picture, he's startled to see something moving inside. It looks like a small creature is about to hatch from an egg. Then things get even worse. A massive creature suddenly rises and stands only a few feet away from him. Lenny immediately runs back to his truck and floors the gas pedal, but he doesn't make it in time. The strange creature leaps onto the hood, extends a long tentacle that smashes through the windshield, latches onto Lenny's chest, and drains the life out of him within seconds. The next morning, a young man named Roth arrives at a cave in the same area and hides 2 bags inside without noticing a slimy trail nearby. Roth works with his relatives, Bert and Clay, who run a wilderness camp for troubled teenagers, especially those struggling with family issues. Bert believes his nephew is still too young to be a counselor, but Clay had fired the previous guy to cut costs and has already decided to put Roth in the position. Roth hates the idea, insisting he doesn't have the authority to keep a group of rebellious teenagers under control. However, his Aunt Summer encourages him, saying he can at least be a positive role model. Soon, the campers arrive by helicopter. The group consists of 3 boys and 2 girls. Trapper is the first to cause trouble, forcing Bert to pin him to the ground. Clay then calls over another camper named Lewis. The moment Lewis sees Bert, he recognizes him as the former professional wrestler once known as the Destroyer. Bert's wrestling career ended in tragedy after one of his opponents died in the ring. While Lewis quickly spreads that story around the group, Clay talks to Tom, the helicopter pilot. Tom warns her that he won't be delivering supplies on Wednesday as usual because they're behind on payments. Clay explains that this new group of campers will bring in enough money to cover their debts, and begs him to give her more time. Tom reluctantly agrees and hands her the mail before taking off. As Clay opens the first envelope, she discovers that the parents of a camper from the previous session are suing Bert for assault. While everyone prepares for the first hike, Roth accidentally walks into a tent and catches Courtney changing her clothes. He immediately apologizes, but she's furious. Outside, another camper named Mika complains that her parents forced her to come to the camp. Wes says the same thing happened to him and even questions whether it's legal. Clay interrupts the argument and explains that everyone is there because their parents enrolled them. She reminds them that Second Chance Camp isn't a summer vacation, it's a rehabilitation program for teens with problems at home, at school, or even with law enforcement. Because of that, electronic devices are prohibited during the trip, and the number 1 rule is to obey the counselors without arguing. Clay then warns everyone to hand over any illegal items immediately. Wes ignores her warning and even tries to convince Bert that the herbs he's carrying are just oregano. Realizing no one is going to cooperate, Bert and Clay begin searching everyone and end up confiscating a large amount of contraband. After the search, Clay tells everyone to double-check their gear before setting out. Just as Roth expected, the rest of the teenagers immediately take their frustration out on him. Mika complains about having to hike such a long distance to the first campsite, but Clay coldly replies that she's welcome to crawl if she'd rather do that. Bert also reminds them they're in the middle of the desert, and anyone who tries to run away will likely die. Meanwhile, Courtney keeps giving Roth a hard time because she still believes he was staring at her during the incident in the tent. As they continue hiking, Mika gets excited after spotting a herd of wild horses, but Trapper ruins the moment by yelling loudly and scaring the animals away. That night, the group sets up camp. Unable to sleep, Lewis starts sketching while listening to the radio. Suddenly, the radio fills with strange static and an eerie buzzing sound. Outside, the horses begin whinnying nervously, making Lewis uneasy. Bert wakes up and scolds Lewis for making noise, but he quickly realizes something is seriously wrong. Feeling the ground tremble, he rushes outside and sees a herd of horses charging straight toward the campsite. He immediately screams for everyone to get out of their tents before they're trampled. Courtney is nearly left behind, but Roth risks his own life to save her, and everyone barely escapes unharmed. Once the danger passes, Trapper lashes out at the adults, accusing them of nearly getting everyone killed, while Wes threatens to sue them as well. Courtney thanks Roth for saving her life and helps Clay rebuild the campsite after much of it was destroyed, including their satellite phone. Suddenly, A terrifying sound echoes from somewhere in the distance. Everyone hears it clearly, but no one can figure out what made it. After a few moments, the sound fades away. The following morning, the group resumes hiking. Lewis asks Bert about his wrestling career, and Bert admits he quit after the fatal accident. He hints that working with troubled teenagers is his way of trying to make up for the life he took. Eventually, the group reaches the spot where Lenny was attacked. They find the mysterious object still lying there, but this time it's completely empty. No one can explain what it is, and everyone laughs at Wes when he suggests it might be connected to aliens. While searching the area, Roth finds Lenny's cell phone lying on the ground. At the same time, Bert spots Lenny's abandoned pickup truck in the distance, and from the way it's positioned, it's obvious that something terrible happened there. Bert and Clay head over to inspect Lenny's pickup truck, while Roth manages to power on Lenny's cell phone. Comparing the last photo on the phone to the strange object in front of him, he realizes that something hatched from it not long ago. As Bert opens the driver's door, Lenny's lifeless body suddenly falls out. With their satellite phone destroyed, they have no way to contact the authorities. Bert insists that the only option is to cancel the trip and head back immediately, but Clay nearly loses it at the suggestion. All she can think about is the money they'd have to refund the families, along with the lawsuit already hanging over their heads. She reminds Bert of what happened during the previous camp, when he had to restrain a violent teenager, only for the boy's family to sue him afterward. Terrified of going bankrupt, Clay admits she's willing to do whatever it takes to avoid financial ruin. Even though she's still unsure of what she actually saw, she decides they should continue the trip without telling the campers anything. Right now, she believes the most important thing is getting everyone away from Lenny's body. She even ignores Roth when he tries to show her the photo of the mysterious object. That night, the group sets up another campsite beneath rumbling thunder as a storm begins to roll in. Wes struggles to pitch his tent, vents his frustration on everyone around him, and demands to go home. Trapper quickly joins the protest, but Clay shuts them down, telling them that going home with the same mindset won't change anything because none of them were truly happy with their lives to begin with. Her speech affects most of the group, but Courtney argues that it's much easier for parents to dump their kids in the middle of the desert than to deal with their own shortcomings. Meanwhile, Roth keeps trying to show someone the photos he found, but something always interrupts him. This time, Trapper announces that he's heading off to find a tree so he can use the bathroom. Bert tells Roth to go with him, which annoys both boys. Trapper refuses, shoves Roth to the ground, and walks away while Clay focuses on breaking up the argument instead of making them obey Bert's instructions. Bert becomes furious when he sees Trapper wandering off by himself. After Trapper gets a good distance away from camp, he hears the sound of a branch snapping behind him. Startled, he turns around and finds Bert standing there with a shotgun, once again warning him not to wander off alone. Frustrated by the lack of privacy, Trapper starts cursing at Bert before walking farther away. Suddenly, he hears a strange humming sound. When he looks back, he sees a horrifying creature emerging from the rocks. Bert immediately tells him to run, then steps in front of the creature and fires several shotgun blasts at it. The gunshots alert the rest of the group. Roth rushes toward the scene and runs into Trapper, who is too shocked to explain what happened. Moments later, Roth watches in horror as the alien creature attacks Bert and drains the life out of him right before his eyes. Devastated, Roth screams to warn the others. Everyone rushes over in shock, while Clay desperately tries to save Bert, but it's already too late. The entire group is terrified by the attack, though only Roth and Trapper truly understand what they're dealing with. With Clay frozen in disbelief, Roth takes charge and leads everyone back to the cave where he had hidden the emergency backpacks. Inside, they find food, water, and a working radio, but no one responds to their calls for help. As Wes sits on the ground, he accidentally places his hand in a slimy substance. That's when everyone realizes the entire cave is covered with the same goo. Lewis panics when the radio suddenly starts producing the same eerie buzzing sound, even though he swears it was turned off. At the same time, Roth notices the screen on Lenny's phone vibrating, making him realize the alien has entered the cave. He urgently tells everyone they need to get out immediately, but before he can explain why, a bright beam of light suddenly shines down on the enormous creature. The group freezes in terror, and Roth quietly tells them not to make any sudden movements. Trapper ignores the warning and takes off running, leaving everyone else with no choice but to follow him. During the escape, Wes slips across the rocks, and the alien attacks him before he can get back on his feet. His screams echo throughout the cave as the rest of the group manages to escape. The following morning, the survivors continue on foot until they return to the crash site. Roth finally shows everyone the photos, and Courtney points out that the strange egg looks exactly like the slimy substance Wes touched inside the cave. Roth then finds Lenny's pickup truck and pieces together everything that happened the previous day. Furious, he confronts Clay for putting the entire group in danger by insisting they continue the trip. The atmosphere becomes tense as the group silently makes its way back to the campsite they had abandoned. Before allowing anyone to approach, Roth carefully checks the entire area to make sure it's safe. Once he's satisfied, everyone begins gathering their belongings. Trapper is frustrated to discover that getting his cell phone back is useless because there's still no signal. Clay tells everyone that the helicopter is scheduled to arrive the next morning. Clay is shaken when she comes across a photo of Bert, while Roth appears far more emotionally composed than before. Courtney's attitude toward him changes completely, and she even tells him that she feels safer whenever she's with him. Suddenly, Mika notices strange interference on her phone. Roth immediately realizes what it means and orders everyone to run to the cabin. At that very moment, the alien appears from behind the largest tent. Roth fires several shots at it, but the creature keeps moving forward as if nothing had hit it. Roth barely makes it into the cabin before slamming the door shut. Clay and Mika are too far away to reach it, so they're forced to hide inside the campground restroom, a much weaker structure than the cabin. Roth tells Courtney to open the door the moment there's an opportunity so Clay and Mika can get inside, but Trapper refuses to let her do it. The two boys end up in a heated fight. Meanwhile, Clay watches the alien through the gaps between the restroom's wooden boards. As soon as it moves far enough away, she and Mika sprint toward the cabin, only to find the door locked. Hearing Mika desperately begging to be let in, Roth knocks Trapper unconscious with the butt of his shotgun. Roth opens the door and lets Mika inside first. Clay rushes in right behind her, but the alien is faster. It slams the door into her body and forces one of its tentacles through the opening, attaching it to her chest. Roth and the others shove the door with all their strength, finally freeing the creature's tentacle and pulling Clay inside just in time. Sadly, her injuries are fatal. With her last breath, she asks Roth to make sure all the teenagers get out of there safely. Courtney blames Trapper for Clay's death, and Roth even points his gun at him, but he can't bring himself to pull the trigger. That night, Roth and Courtney take the first watch while the others rest. Roth tries to teach her how to use the handgun in case anything happens to him, but she hates the idea. As the night goes on, the two begin growing much closer. The next morning, everyone is overjoyed to hear the sound of the helicopter approaching. Lewis checks the radio and confirms that the creature isn't nearby. However, as soon as Tom sees 5 armed teenagers with no sign of the adults, he refuses to take them anywhere until he gets an explanation. He's stunned to learn that Bert and Clay are dead and insists on seeing the scene for himself. Roth, who has completely run out of patience, points his gun at Tom and forces him back toward the helicopter. Tom explains that he's delivering supplies to the camp and that they have to unload the cargo first because the helicopter can't carry both the freight and the extra passengers at the same time. Everyone except Trapper, who refuses to lift a finger, works together to unload the supplies as quickly as possible. The teens are incredibly relieved once they're finally aboard the helicopter. Mika and Lewis even start laughing and joking around. But shortly after takeoff, the helicopter suddenly jolts, followed by a loud impact against the fuselage. At first, Tom thinks the aircraft is still overloaded, but Lewis realizes it's something far worse when the radio begins making the same eerie buzzing sound again. Moments later, the helicopter shakes violently a second time as the alien tears through one of the doors, attacks Mika, and latches one of its tentacles onto her. The helicopter spins wildly out of control. As it drops low enough to the ground, Trapper immediately jumps out. Roth tells everyone else to do the same while staying behind to save Mika. Soon he's left alone with her and Tom, fully aware that there's no hope of saving her anymore. He finally jumps from the helicopter as well. The alien fatally impales Tom, but despite his injuries, Tom keeps flying until his final breath, steering the helicopter into a mountainside, where it crashes and explodes. The survivors are so shocked that they can hardly believe the creature is actually dead. But they also realize they're now stranded in the middle of the desert with no transportation, no way to call for help, and only a handful of survivors left. After thinking it over, Roth decides to lead the other 3 survivors to his Aunt Summer's house. The hike is long and exhausting, yet Trapper keeps complaining and acting selfishly. Roth refuses to let him drag the group's morale down, and warns him that he has only 2 choices: stay with the group or leave on his own. Trapper crosses the line by attacking Roth from behind. The two get into a brutal fight, rolling through the sand until Roth finally overpowers him. Courtney steps in and grabs Roth's arm before things go any further. Meanwhile, the alien crawls out from the wreckage of the helicopter. At the same time, Aunt Summer arrives slowly on her tractor. She's horrified by the condition of the teenagers and devastated when she learns that Bert and Clay have been killed. When Summer tells Roth that the truck keys are still in the ignition, Trapper quietly slips away toward the door. No one notices because Summer is busy calling the sheriff. She complains that the signal is breaking up, and then the now familiar buzzing sound interrupts the call. Roth grabs the phone and immediately realizes his worst fear has come true: the alien is still alive. That's when Courtney notices Trapper is missing, and everyone rushes outside. Trapper manages to start the pickup truck and drives off. Roth chases after him, shouting warnings about the danger. He hangs onto the side of the truck and reaches the window, but Trapper punches him, knocking him off. Roth crashes to the ground and loses consciousness. Courtney runs over and desperately tries to wake him while everyone watches the alien sprint after the moving truck. The creature slams into the pickup with incredible force, bringing it to a stop before attacking Trapper. His screams convince Courtney that he's beyond saving, so she runs for cover while Lewis asks Summer where she keeps her weapons. Apparently, even the alien has had enough of Trapper. Instead of draining him, its tentacle simply pierces straight through him, killing him instantly. The creature then quietly enters the garage, where Courtney is hiding. A short time later, Lewis and Summer arrive armed, but they find no sign of either Courtney or the alien. Roth regains consciousness and immediately asks about Courtney. When he's told she's been taken, Summer says the sheriff is already on the way, but Roth refuses to wait. Summer helps him prepare for one final fight. Lewis also contributes by suggesting they use a shovel as a shield and by making 2 homemade bombs, warning Roth that each fuse burns for only 20 seconds. Roth rushes to the cave and spots bloodstains at the entrance. He carefully moves forward with a flashlight but suddenly trips and falls over what remains of Wes's body. As he ventures deeper inside, he discovers an even more horrifying sight. Courtney is trapped inside the sticky substance while a small alien is attached to her, feeding directly from her body. The crackling radio warns Roth that the larger alien is approaching. With no other choice, he points his handgun at the baby alien and pulls the trigger, blowing it apart while freeing Courtney at the same time. But doing so immediately alerts the larger creature. A desperate race against time begins. Roth throws one of the homemade bombs to slow the alien down. Even so, the creature comes dangerously close, though it still can't catch them. Outside, Summer and Lewis finish setting up an explosive trap. When Roth returns with Courtney, Lewis explains the plan while Summer takes care of the nearly unconscious girl. The alien arrives much sooner than expected and catches Lewis by surprise from behind. Roth distracts the creature and begins carrying out the plan. The alien chases him across the farm while Summer flips the switch, raising the electrified wire frame Lewis built. Roth dives through it at the last possible second. The alien crashes into the wires and takes a massive electric shock, yet it gets right back up as if nothing had happened. Then Summer shocks everyone, including Roth, by ramming the alien with her fuel-filled tractor. The entire barn explodes, and Summer sacrifices herself in the blast. Even so, the alien emerges from the explosion alive and seemingly unharmed. The creature attacks Roth, but the shovel hidden inside his jacket, along with Courtney's gunfire, buys him just enough time for one final move. Carrying the last homemade bomb, Roth charges straight at the alien and shoves his arm into the creature's open tentacle-like mouth. It's the only way to blow the monster up from the inside and finally destroy the unwanted visitor. Just seconds before dozens of police vehicles arrive at the scene, the bomb explodes, bringing the movie to its dramatic conclusion. Thanks for watching. Don't forget that your opinion matters to us, so be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to the channel.